Tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, dry weather in the eastern part of the United States, and it's going to be warming up as we go through the week. We have Hurricane Tammy on the lower right on this satellite view from earlier today, so we'll give that storm a quick look because it is indirectly affecting the weather in the eastern part of the United States. And the Rockies and the Plains will be seeing their first their first snowstorm later this week, and then another one that possibly follows behind that over the weekend. That's all coming up tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. Mulch, topsoil, and sand, and anything else you need to make your home look great. 631-756-1125 is the phone number, and you can't find better prices anywhere. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. Yes, on the planet. And the planet is Earth. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you use the make a purchase on the Tempest by Weatherflow website, use the coupon code I want a weather station, because you do. And if you do, you'll get
a big 10% off, which is pretty darn good.
Yes, very good. So, welcome. We had an extra day off this weekend. Thankfully, I had a nice stretch of weather. I got to rest up, did a little catching, which was good. And I went to a friend of mine is a very much one of the best tenors I've ever heard, and he produced a program. Well, it wasn't a program per se, but it was at St. Francis of Assisi Episcopal Church in just outside of Chattanooga, and I went and saw that, and I have to tell you, Joe, it was just one of the best performances by a choir that I've ever seen. It was really just amazing. So that was made my weekend, settled my mind nicely. I've come back calm. I already blocked one person permanently off the chat board tonight, so, I'm feeling good.
Well, it sounds like, now you told me off air that you caught a few trout, but
yeah.
You really didn't. Did you actually keep them, or did
No, threw them back.
Threw them back.
Yeah.
All right, that's.
I'm a catch and release kind of guy.
As Bob Ross, the late great artist on PBS, likes to say, I used to go fishing. I catch a fish, then I pat it on the tutu and let him go.
Yes.
Catch him another day.
All right, so just want to let folks know that a number of you have asked me if we're going to be doing any kind of winter stuff, and yes, we will be doing some winter stuff. Wednesday, everyone's favorite meteorologist, Joe, Dave Toleris, who's been on the show before. Let's just say he always does tend to spark emotion, but we love him dearly. I have to say that. He's going to be on Wednesday's show. I'm also trying to get Bill Goodman, who has not confirmed yet, but he may also be on Wednesday. If not Wednesday, then we'll have him on a separate day. And I'm working on a few other people to join us. I put a link up on the chat board that I think everybody should take a look at as far as the winter outlooks are concerned. And this is from a gentleman named Eric Snodgrass. I think he's based up in Canada. I don't have the website up here. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can tell you everybody the name of the website. It's Nutrient AG Solutions. So they primarily, I think, from what I've gathered off the website, they do agricultural forecasting for Canada and probably for the United States as well. But he did a long range video that is, I think it's a must watch for anybody that uh, that is into weather. It is well done. It's understandable. I mean, there were a few acronyms that I had to learn, but it's understandable. But he does bring up an issue that you and I have brought up, which is the fact that last late year's La Nina did not behave the way a La Nina should behave. And
Right.
I know that we're kind of micro focused on the Northeast and the Northern Mid Atlantic states, but he looked at the whole country. And there were a lot of places that had weather that they normally would not get in a La Nina year. And he pointed out in this video that so far, going into the September October timeframe, we're seeing this El Nino is not producing the kind of weather that an El Nino normally would produce in terms of impacts to different areas of geography across the U.S. So, going to try to get him on the show. I sent him an invite, so hopefully he will respond and and we'll get him on. And I think it would be a great show if he got on because it's really a good video. Everybody should look at it. And thanks to the person who mentioned his name on the chat board because I blocked that person. That's the person I blocked because he was just being, he was trolling in my opinion, and he apparently claimed his constitutional right to free speech, and I claimed my constitutional right to block. And my constitutional right to block has more power than the constitutional right to free speech.
Oh, there you go.
And there you have it.
Right.
So, a bit of a chill tonight, especially away from warmer urban centers and some coastal locations. Looks like there might be some frost in some areas, but this is just a minor event in a week that in the eastern part of the United States actually looks rather quiet. And in the meantime, as I said earlier in the show open, we have the first, I think that's going to be the first important snow event for the Northern Rockies and the Plains. And that's coming later this week, and there might be a system behind that one.
Well, it looks like we're going to have a crazy weather pattern this week. I mean, tonight, people will be looking, especially in places where I am, going to be looking for the blanket. But meantime, I mentioned to Renata later on in the week, I said, you think maybe we might need the air conditioning, to get a good night's sleep? Because temperatures here later this week are going to be peaking in the mid 70s, maybe even the upper 70s. At night, begrudgingly dropping down to near 60 by daybreak, but still could be a rather warm few nights coming up later on in the week. In contrast to tonight, where we have a frost advisory in effect for all areas in the Hudson Valley to the north and west of I-287. And if you're wondering why, for example, Ulster County or Sullivan County or Dutchess County does not have a frost advisory, it's very simple. Their growing season has apparently already ended, and I think they've already had a frost, at least up in that area or that vicinity. I might be wrong, though. I don't really recall a spell of cold weather, Joe, that actually would have allowed that. This is really the first time that we're seeing temperatures widespread, again, in northern sections, dropping down into the 30s by daybreak.
Well, Albany's got Dutchess County and points north, so I guess maybe they didn't think that it was going to be an issue for them.
Well, maybe. Again, this is going to be the first time, and I honestly don't think that where we are or where I am, Putnam Valley, we're going to drop to, let's say, 32 or 33. We'll probably get no lower than 36, 37, in my humble opinion. However, that's the air temperature. And down near the surface or at the surface, especially on colder surfaces such as grass or the tops of cars or whatever, it may just touch 32, and then it may very well lead to a brief period of frost. They have the frost advisory from 2 a.m. tomorrow morning to 9 a.m. Although by 9 a.m. it'll be long past. Sun will be up and it'll probably be too warm. But in the pre-dawn hours, yeah, it's going to get pretty darn chilly out there.
The Weather Service has frost advisories up for much of western, central, and southwestern Connecticut, but not northwest Connecticut. Again, because Litchfield County in northwest Connecticut, that's Albany's jurisdiction. So that kind of explains, I guess, that part of it. Frost advisories for the Hudson Valley. Frost advisories for just about all of New Jersey, except for the counties surrounding New York City and not for Long Island. Eastern and southeastern Pennsylvania, as well as south central PA, almost all of Maryland, Delaware, the Delmarva Peninsula, more than the eastern half of Virginia, and down into eastern and central North Carolina, all under frost advisories. Meanwhile, we've got winter storm watches. First time we've gotten to say that this autumn. Winter storm watch is up for northwestern North Dakota, a large portion of the state of Montana, and they already have winter storm warnings up for a whole bunch of counties in central and western Montana. Then we flip to winter weather advisories for northern Idaho and northeastern Washington state, a bunch of counties to the west of that in Washington state under winter storm warnings, and they got the advisories going down the mountains into Oregon in a narrow band there, and then there's a gap, and then in northwest Washington, I guess what is it, Olympia? What's the mountain that's to the west of Seattle on the other side? There's a mountain there. That's where they've got winter weather advisories up as well. So this is the first one, and I dug out the probability of at least 4 on the Weather Service, the WPC's probability of at least 4 inches of snow, and this carries us through Thursday night. It's a fairly large area of 80% or higher probability extending from western North Dakota, much of the state of Montana. The whole state of Montana is at least 50% for at least 4. It also extends down into northwestern Wyoming. Then you see another area in Washington state where it's 80% or higher. I'm going to just let's go to the 12 plus and see what they got here. Yeah, look, even on the 12 plus, not too shabby there in northwestern Wyoming, central, and then a finger going across eastern Montana into western North Dakota, a 50% or higher probability of at least 12. So this is the first one. The snow lovers are jumping up and down because it's snowing somewhere. They can always Olympic Peninsula. Thank you, Johnny Quest. That's what I was trying to remember, which explains why I remembered Olympia, Washington, and not the what you just said, the Olympic Peninsula. But yeah, this is the first one, and I guess from the standpoint of time, it's probably about the time you would see the first snowfall somewhere. And normally, by the way, you would hardly ever have an opportunity, just in rare instances, where you'd see the first snows in the Northeast in this time of year. So just please put that in perspective. In the northern plains and in the northern Rockies, that if you're gonna, when it's gonna snow, it's usually that's where you see it first.
And contrasts: Western United States, cold, snowy; eastern United States, unseasonably mild, or you might just even call it warm, because, as I mentioned at the onset, we've got temperatures that are anticipated beginning Wednesday, low 70s, and I think Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Joe, at least mid-70s, and maybe even a bit higher than that for some urbanized areas. Maybe Newark might touch 80. It's so funny, too, because earlier on this month, I think it was around October 5th or 6th, a lot of forecasters were saying, well, looks like we're going to be hitting 80, and next time we'll see this happen probably won't be until next spring. Well, guess what? Next spring has arrived.
Well, it might happen. The digital, I noticed it on the digital forecasts from the Weather Service for the highs for this coming Saturday had a few 80-degree numbers in parts of South Jersey. So yeah, I think it's certainly possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So I mean, yeah, frost advisory tonight for parts of the Hudson Valley, but I can assure, they said, bring in your plants. They're gonna get killed or whatever like that. But I mean, as I said, the cold temperatures are going to be very, very transitory, very short-lived. It's not like we're talking about a hard freeze. It's going to last most of the night.
no,
So even if you get a touch of frost tonight, I don't think that's going to put the growing season aside. My wife Renata, she's been growing all kinds of tomatoes, cherry tomatoes and regular sized tomatoes. Do I think that that's it for the growing season for the tomatoes? No, not with temperatures later on in the week expected to be in the 70s, and again, rather mild for this time of the year. And then, as you alluded to, Joe, we may see a cool down again at the end of next weekend or maybe early next week.
the chairman, Scott Briller, hitting super chat tonight. First under the tip jar. Thank you, Scott, pointing out that 47 this morning was the lowest temperature in New York City since late spring. And Mark G. Also hitting the tip jar. Thank you, Mark. And he says, Joe, he read somewhere that Litchfield County in Connecticut ended their growing season without a frost/freeze advisory last week. So I know the Weather Service has been, and I've seen stuff on their website. They were doing something to try to improve the frost freeze forecast that they put out. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Um, maybe the determination that the growing season is ended might be not that there's frost so much, but maybe if there's a series of, say, 3 nights in a row where it gets down to the 30s or something like that, that they've just decided that, okay, that's good enough to say that you can't grow anything anymore.
Right. Right. It's we still got a ways to go before, like for example,
For a widespread killing frost, yeah, we have a ways to go.
yeah, and when it gets very cold,
Mm-hmm.
when we start seeing temperatures at or below freezing here, we turn off all the water that's out on the patio and out in the yard because we don't want the pipes to freeze. But we're not going to do that tonight because, as I said, I really don't think we're going to see temperatures locally here in Putnam Valley much lower than 36 or 37. And right now it's around 47. So it's going to get cold tonight, but not quite so cold that you got to. Oh my goodness, it's wintertime. Oh, no, it's not going to be like that.
No. The satellite loop, one of the reasons why we are getting this warm spell this week is on the lower right, and that's Hurricane Tammy, which is got a rather sheared look to it as it moves northward, well away from the Leeward Islands where it moved through this weekend. But it has helped to reinforce the ridge off the east coast, and that is going to help to hold that ridge in place. This was forecast by models last week to recurve, and the trough that moved off the east coast yesterday and last night was supposed to pick it up and take it out to the northeast, but a lot of the models have sort of backed away on that idea, and as a result, you're winding up with a stronger ridge along the east coast. And we've seen this happen numerous times in the last year or two, where we get these tropical systems that sort of fire up. And actually, sometimes they don't even have to be tropical systems. They can just be lows that form out here that are non-tropical or partially tropical that have reinforced the ridge off the southeast coast of the United States and have kind of, maybe if they didn't alter the weather pattern, they certainly slowed down the next round of changes. And that seems to be what's happening here.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree. And this is somebody asks on the chat board, because sometimes we get somebody saying or asking, well, is this tropical system going to change the whole overview of the weather patterns for the coming weeks and months? No, this is a short-term thing when we're talking about Tammy. This is not going to, flip everything over and change everything around toward a more wintry weather pattern even though we are looking for a change to chillier or colder weather for the end of the weekend and early next week.
Hurricane Norma in the East Pacific went inland over Mexico, and now it's long gone and it's just a remnant low, but you can see the moisture from that is streaming northeastward up into Texas and Oklahoma. We also have a disturbance moving through the Great Lakes with some showers, and you can already start to see what's coming into the Pacific Northwest that is already streaming out ahead of it in the plains. This is all setting up for this snow event that's going to be occurring up in that part of the country. And taking a look at the radar tonight, I'm just going to give it a quick refresh. And we've got some showers and maybe even some rumbles of thunder going on in northern Michigan. Also down in Texas and Oklahoma and into Arkansas, patches of some moderate to heavier rains there. The radars in the eastern part of the United States, up and down, just looking terrifically quiet. If you want quiet weather, you got it. Some scattered showers back in New Mexico, and then you start to see this precip that's up into Montana that's already streaming in, most of that on the light side, and just a little bit of action coming in at the moment up in the Pacific Northwest. The WPC folks have no rain. Well, look, let's put it this way. In the light green, that's less than a tenth of an inch. It's all a hundredth. That's less than a tenth of an inch. So either no rain or almost no rain from central New England across it through central Pennsylvania all the way south into southern Florida over the next 7 days and west of the Appalachians and across the Gulf states. I mean, this is just the impact of the ridge, but that Pacific moisture streaming up from Texas northeastward into Missouri and then further north up into the Great Lakes. You see areas. In fact, Joe, they've got from north central Texas into central Oklahoma, that's 3 to 5 inch rainfall amounts that are being indicated over the next 7 days. So it's a lot of wet weather there in the middle. In the Rockies, you're looking at half an inch to an inch of liquid from Idaho eastward across Montana into North Dakota, and some 1.5 inch liquid amounts in northwestern Wyoming and in parts of south central Montana. So again, that's going to be all snow. And also some the precip that's coming into the Pacific Northwest where it's cold enough, and it may be cold enough in places that normally don't see snow this early. Anywhere from 1/2 inch to as much as 1.5 inches of liquid over the next 7 days. So we're dry, and I think that's considering where we've come from over the last several months, a dry stretch like this week. And you know what the good thing about this week, Joe, too, is we're not dealing with, unlike the last 2 weeks, which were both dry weeks for the most part, the first 2 days of those weeks, or in some cases I think it was 3 days, we had to deal with self-destructive sunshine and scattered pop-up showers that showed up. This week we're not seeing that at all.
Absolutely. We're going to have bright, sunny weather for much of the week. And it won't be until maybe, at least in my humble opinion, maybe late in the day on Sunday that we might see a shower or two creep into parts of the Hudson Valley. More likely, it would happen on Monday of next week. So we're talking about almost a full week of dry weather. And boy, I don't know about any of you on the chat board, but my lawn is now, I mean, like in some parts of my lawn, it's like a damp sponge. I really, you can't drive the tractor mower over it, or else the tractor mower either is going to sink or get stuck. So I really do need a nice dry week, and I think this is what we're going to be looking at. And also, Joe, hip hip hooray! First time in 7 weeks, we're going to have a Saturday with nothing but wall-to-wall sunshine and temperatures that are going to be abnormally mild in the 70s. So I don't know.
That'll make a few people happy.
I think it will. And again, maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to stretch this out all the way through the entire weekend. Although, playing devil's advocate, I'm mentioning maybe a chance for a shower later in the day on Sunday. Maybe.
Not much in the way of severe weather tonight. A small area in southwest Texas, a small area in southeastern Minnesota, and across central Wisconsin under a marginal risk. For tomorrow, we're looking, at a marginal risk, a bit larger area of marginal, 2 larger areas of marginal risk. southern New Mexico and West Texas, and also from southeast Minnesota across much of Wisconsin, except the far north and far south, and the upper part of the lower peninsula of Michigan and the lower part of the upper peninsula of southern well, you get the idea, of Michigan. That's almost as bad as that's almost as bad. Actually, that's worse than when I have to talk about northern South Dakota and southern North Dakota. Okay, they don't make it easy for me, Mr. Rayo. They don't.
Well,
Oh,
but you were talking about the UP.
the UP
Yes.
as opposed to the LP.
Right.
All right, so let's look at what the let's do this. Let's go before we do the Cioffi. Let's do the upper air pattern. By the way, for those of you, I see a few of you were talking about baseball and asking about the Philadelphia Phillies. I think Dave Toleris, who may be on the show on who is going to be
Oh,
on the show on Wednesday, is apparently a huge Philadelphia Phillies fan. So, say you could probably save your conversation and questions for him when he's on.
if the Phillies are eliminated tomorrow night after the kind of year that they had been through. I mean, as you baseball fans know, they've been on the cusp of making it into the postseason. They were not among the top teams with great records, but somehow they are now just one win away from the World Series. But if they are eliminated tomorrow night, Mr. Tolerance is going to be in such a depressed mood on Wednesday.
Oh, well, we'd love to have him when he's here on a depressed mood.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just flinging through the long range. It's kind of interesting here. You've got, um, the pattern looks a little transitory. The NAO kind of goes neutral, maybe even a little bit positive down the road, but not by much. Very, very slightly positive. That doesn't really matter all that much in terms of the overall outcome. But we know that we're in a ridge position here in the eastern part of the United States. There's an upper high over the southeast, which is great for me. It's cloud-free skies, temperatures in the 70s. What a beautiful weekend I had on the other side of the mountains. When you have to get away from, living in the mountains, I said, I have to get away. I got to get away from the mountains. So where did I go? To another mountain. I mean, it's just pretty much how it works. But here's your strong shortwave that's dropping down the coast of western Canada into the Pacific Northwest, and then that swings eastward, and you have a Canadian connection, a cold flow from northern Alaska into the southern portions of the Arctic Ocean, down through western Canada, into Montana, into a good chunk of the west and into the plains, so that whole trough shifts eastward. The ridge starts to flatten out on Sunday as that trough approaches the east. It looks like it will probably push a cold front through here sometime either late in the weekend or early next week. And the trough does come back into the eastern part of the United States during the first part of next week. There's a sharp arm that moves through right around Halloween or the 1st of November. And then as that lifts out, we have sort of a flattish flow. There's troughing that comes in off the Pacific and drops down into the southwest. The ridge tries to pop back up around the 4th or 5th of November, only to get flattened very quickly because a bigger trough starts to form over central Canada, and then that swings into the eastern part of the United States as we move through that first week of November. So, kind of a transitory pattern here. This ridge setting up along the East Coast is not something that's going to last for 5 months, in case you have already decided that is going to be the case. That is not going to be the case. I still think that the trend is your friend, Joe, and I go back to the fact that the NAO has been negative most of the time for the last 4 months. So I'm going to bet that in the longer range, it may wind up going negative again, and that can be a colder pattern in the eastern part of the United States. There are other factors that are always at play. I think the other thing that's interesting to see is that there is ridging, higher than normal pressures up in the Northeast Pacific developing beyond the day 8-9 time frame. Now, assuming that holds, that's an interesting development as far as that's, I think, a more important development as far as colder weather is concerned in the eastern part of the United States down the road.
somebody is asking on the chat board. I forgot who it was. Somebody was asking, is Dave Tolerous a truly a meteorologist? Oh, I know. It was Tom Contino. Who else would ask that question but Tom Contino? What is his credentials? Is he a degreed meteorologist? And somebody on the chat board answered, Rich Rothmansky, yes, he is, Tom. I had to deal with him a few times. Plus, I worked at Metro Weather.
Deal, quote unquote, deal with.
And I should also point out, and Renato too, because Renato was working with me at CompuWeather, and somehow or other, Mr. Tolerous landed at CompuWeather for a short while as well. You know what he is, Joe? And
he's going to be a guest, Joe. So just be careful how you phrase this.
I will say that he is a meteorological gadfly. Now, you want to look up what a gadfly is, you go ahead and look it up.
Not something that you would use raid on.
Actually, there is it could either be a fly that bites livestock, especially a horse fly or a warble fly. That could be one definition of it. But I like to use the other terminology for gadfly, which is
he's gonna hit you with that hammer, you know.
An annoying person, especially one who provokes others into action.
I love Dave. I just do. I'm sorry. I love Dave.
He
does have. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
If you want to use gadfly in a sentence, always a gadfly. He attacked intellectual orthodoxies. That is the perfect definition of Dave Tolerous, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. Well, he also, we should say, he has tried to get his diploma from Phoebe Emerson's charm school. Now, whether he graduated or not, I don't know. But, I have to tell you, though, quite honestly, I'll come back to the GFS. I want to go full screen.
Latex Stream says, Rayo, don't poke the bear.
I have to tell you, I would say probably in the last year or year and a half, now he does tend, I can't fault the guy because he doesn't tolerate BS, and I'm with him on that, and I've seen some of the things that people post on his page or have posted that he rips into shreds in a way only he can. But you know what? Some of these people say stuff that they deserve to be ripped into shreds. And I've gotten to a point now where my patience, I'm a pretty patient guy, and for the longest time, I really did not like to block people because I don't know, I just didn't like doing it. It didn't make me feel good to do that to somebody. But it's gotten to the point where some people have gotten, I mean, we all know what how evil some people can be now on social media. I mean, I don't think that's breaking news to anybody. And I've gotten past the point where I feel bad about blocking. You push my buttons, you're only going to get so far, and then you're gone. I mean, that's just it. You're gone, and after a day or two, I've forgotten about the fact that I've blocked a certain person, whereas the person being blocked it's gonna eat at them for the longest time.
I would pay to have a debate, a weather debate or a weather discussion between Joe Bastardi and Dave Tolerous. That's something that I would love to see.
Yeah. Well, you could sell tickets at Madison Round Garden for that.
Exactly.
All right, let's get back to the GFS. So you could tune in on Wednesday, so mark it down on your calendar because Dave's going to be here. And he's been on the show before, and he's always been a gentleman. He's never he's never gone off the deep end, and we intend to keep it that way. All right, so anyway, here's your big high. It goes out. We get into a west-southwest wind, or even almost a west wind, starting on. Actually, it kind of starts tomorrow, and then it really gains a foothold on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday. Now, there's a front on Saturday that's in western New York. It's weak. Saturday morning, there's a front. I'm going to draw it in. Front, like right in here. Okay. And the problem is, if you look on the far right of the picture, there's actually, you still have some semblance of Tammy that is sitting near or just east of Bermuda on the GFS. So that really is what's pinning that ridge off the southeast coast, is that tropical system not getting out of the way, and eventually it does. And when it does that, finally you get the front to push through. Now the 18Z GFS, Joe, does have some showers coming in during Sunday with the cold front pushing through. And then as we move into next week, there's actually a fairly cold high behind what's going on in the west, and we should pay attention to this. Here comes the energy into the northwest on Wednesday, and long before the surface low coming into Washington State, but the moisture shooting across Montana to North Dakota, and you can see that cold high in western Canada. It's a strong high. It's a 1037 high that's coming down. So you're going to get that east wind and upslope snows there across Montana into Wyoming. And then that low translates eastward into Colorado Thursday night, and that snow spreads across the Dakotas and into Minnesota, and then runs up into Canada with our cold front coming through. Now here comes another round of energy coming in from the west. So you see another low that forms there in western Colorado, and you get some upslope snows there, as well as snows into Nebraska, and some of that shoots out a weaker system that shoots out some snow next Saturday across parts of Wisconsin and Iowa. Not a whole lot of precip there. A little bit of ice even being indicated in parts of Kansas. And then you see that rain area that spreads eastward with a front and a couple of waves on it. And here comes the first cold front comes through on Monday. Then a stronger front looks like it pushes through on Tuesday with a really this should be an impressive for this time of year. Right around Halloween, November 1st, Joe, 522, 528 thicknesses in the northeast down to New York City. So that's cold. And that cold air actually gets all the way down into the southeastern part of the U.S. And then after that, I mean, I think one thing, if this were to work out or something along the lines of this working out, it doesn't look like any major storms affecting the eastern part of the United States for the next 2 weeks. Major storms.
Right. Okay. I could deal with that, considering that all I've heard since the evolution of this quote super El Nino is that it means that the
But
Northeast.
it's not a super El. No, that's wrong. I don't know where that came from. This El Nino is not right now is weak. It is not strong. It is weak, and it's going to not. It's not going to get to any kind of become a super strong El Nino. It's just not.
Well, I think the reason is that, and I don't want to, point fingers at NOAA, but I mean, like, NOAA has been promoting the Climate Prediction Center as one of their headlines is El Nino anticipated to continue through the northern hemisphere spring with an 80% chance.
All right, but that's that.
May 2024.
Yeah, but they didn't say a super strong El Nino is going to affect the United States. They said El Nino. Right. And when you look at El Nino, when you look at what it's charted on the charts that measure the strength of this El Nino, it's not that strong. It's just not.
Well, the interesting thing is they've got it. They got on this. The latest diagnostic discussion, which dates back to October 12th, 80% chance, they say, of El Nino during March through May of 2024. And as I pointed out on more than one occasion, our friend at Weather Trends 360, Bill Kirk, says, no. This is going to peak in about 4 or 5 weeks in November, and then it's going to rapidly diminish and maybe even completely disappear by mid or late winter. So what his forecast is for El Nino is much different than what NOAA is forecasting for El Nino. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly we do get out of El Nino. And your friend or the person, I beg pardon that I don't have the name or in front of me here, the YouTube video that you've urged
Oh,
all of us,
Eric Snodgrass.
Eric Snodgrass,
Right.
I mean, he's going along with what we've been saying, and that is that all of these things, the rules for a lot of these events aren't living up to what they supposedly are supposed to live up to.
Yeah, he made a point to say that the seasonal patterns that have been established already are superseding what what you would might normally expect with an El Nino. And when you look at the kind of weather that's been going on in the last couple of months, it does not match up right now. Now, it's not to say that it might not match up down the road, but it does not match up to what a typical El Nino might produce. When you look at what's going on in the West, for example,
Right.
the El Nino, one of the video that I watched pointed out that the weather in the north during an El Nino, the weather in the West is usually wet in the south and wet in the southern part of the West and dry in the north. Well, guess what? It's been the reverse.
Right.
The pattern across, there remains a pretty severe drought across much of the south central part of the United States and down across the Gulf states. That area should be soaking wet. Then there's areas of rain where it's occurring in the middle of the country that should be dry. So there's a lot of things that are happening that are just not in sync. And we pointed out, if this were truly a strong El Nino, we would not be at waiting for the letter V now with the names for a tropical cyclone. I mean, we've gotten, what is that? What are we at? 19 now? 19? 20?
I got to admit, I didn't really, from the start of the hurricane season when there was rumblings that we were going to have an El Nino summer, which never really panned out in my, what we saw. And I said, well, an El Nino summer, El Nino usually refers to upper level wind patterns that tears apart hurricanes in the Atlantic basin. And they were going for the abnormally warm ocean water. And I said, well, I think the El Nino will trump that. And it never did. It never did.
No.
And we're up to, like, as you said, we only got like 2 or 3 names left on the list. So this certainly has lived up to the projection that this was going to be an abnormally active hurricane season, in contrast to what El Nino summers supposedly produce. El Nino summer means much lower threat of hurricanes, but we certainly did not see that in 2023.
Correct. Hurricane Tammy, and we have a new tropical depression, which probably will be gone. Well, one of two things will happen. This is one of those systems that is supposed to go inland, and at the last minute will become a tropical storm and get rid of another name. But nonetheless, the new tropical depression is at 11.6 north, 83.5 west, which is right on the coast of southern Nicaragua. Top winds are 30 miles per hour. They're expecting it to move inland tonight. And Tammy is moving north-northeast at 7. It's at 22.3, 63.6 with 75 mile an hour winds. Showed you on the satellite from earlier, just to go back to refresh you. If you look on the lower right, you can see Tammy, and it has a bit of a sheared look to it. And the Hurricane Center has it becoming extratropical or post-tropical in about 2 or 3 days, as it is forecast to maybe make a hook to the left toward Bermuda as a post-tropical tropical storm. I don't know. They always seem to be. I don't know, they always seem to like to make things extratropical. So either way, that's what's going on with that. So there you have it. And let me bring us back on the screen so everybody can see. Hey, the Giants won yesterday, so I can actually have a week now where I don't have to wear my sweatshirt in shame, which is a good thing.
Yeah, at 1 o'clock on Sunday, we'll have the Giants are the home team at MetLife Stadium on Sunday, I understand. So should be an interesting game between the Giants and the Jets.
We get a second super chat. Steve Lapointe hit super chat tonight. Thank you, Steve. Steve's going to pass on the Dave Tolliver show on Wednesday. And I did already mention the chairman hit super chat twice.
Twice, he did.
Oh, he did. Both. Thank you, Scott. Both Saturday and Sunday, the morning low was tied between two towns. Any guesses?
Either it has to be Peter Sinks or
Peter
Angel,
Sinks and Angel
Fire.
Angel Fire.
Yeah.
So I guess those two people keep winning. Eventually, they're going to stop winning.
We also have Mark. We also have Mark G, who hit super chat, and also way back at the beginning, Ken Musillo, the first one tonight.
Oh, I missed Ken. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
All right, let's leave this for the chat board tonight. This is exclusive for the chat board for Briller Jeopardy. And that is...
Before we get to Briller Jeopardy, I just want to answer a question Dave Carter asked earlier in the show on the chat board about whether or not there was any reports of a fireball meteor or meteors that passed over the tri-state area last night. And I did check with the AMS, not the American Meteorological Society. Believe it or not, there's another organization known as the AMS, the American Meteor Society, which takes note of meteor showers and unusually bright meteors. And according to the AMS, last night at 10:03 p.m., Joe, there was indeed a fireball meteor that streaked across the sky that was visible from, get this now, from Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, and Ontario. That must have been one heck of a fireball to be seen over such a large area. Naturally, of course, at 10:03 last night, where was I when all this happened? I was inside, probably watching the rerun of Ed Sullivan or something. But in any case, Dave, to answer your question, yes, at 10:03 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time last night, there was some sort of a major fireball meteor that was reported over a rather wide section of the Northeast and also into Ontario, Canada as well.
All right, let's get Briller Jeopardy underway here. What are the 4 largest islands in the world? The 4 largest islands in the world.
I stay out of this, right?
You stay out of this. This is a chat board. You have to be on the chat board to play. So, Christinapedia says Australia. Keith James II says Long Island. Well, that's if it's measured on how long it takes you to drive from one end to the other, I would agree with you. Johnny Quest says Greenland, and that is the number 1 answer. Frank Scalera says Australia. I always thought Australia was considered a continent. I've never heard it re-referenced as an island. Okay, so I don't know if they've changed that. They're constantly changing things. So those are 2. Paul Roman, the Aleutians are an island chain, a chain of islands, so that doesn't work. Hawaii, sandy blue ocean, no. Manhattan, definitely not. Iceland, Christinapedia mentions Iceland. Yes, Iceland is number 3. Okay. You mentioned the UK, no. And anyway, Iceland, Greenland. So there's one more. One more. And I will give you a hint. It's the name of a Disney movie. It's the name of a Disney movie. Nope, not Guam, not New Guinea, not New Zealand, not New Zealand, not Fantasy Island. No, 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 no. Come on. Oh, Matthew Howe got it. He already actually got it earlier. I missed it. Madagascar. Madagascar is number 4. What are the 4 tallest mountains in the lower 48? 4 tallest mountains in the lower 48 states. All right. So that's the question. So waiting for the answers to pop up. I probably would have gotten 3 of these. One of them I've never heard of. Pikes Peak is not there. Mount Whitney, Johnny Quest, is correct. Mount Whitney is there.
Washington's 6,300 feet. I don't think it would be on the list,
right.
would it?
No. Mount Whitney in California is number 1. Someone just mentioned um, another one. Hold on. Um, the lower 48, folks. So
Alan Bertona says Rainier.
that's number 3. Mount Rainier is number 3. That's what I was looking for. Mount Hood is not there. Um, the White Mountains are not there. Mount Washington, as you said, Joe, not there. Pikes Peak, not there. Mount Olympus, no. Um, unless Hercules and Newt are there. Denali, no. The lower 48.
Hiya, Herc.
Right. Mount Rushmore. This is the one I wouldn't get. Rich Rothmansky out. Mount Elbert in Colorado. So there's one left. And Mount Shasta. Thank you, Alan Rupa. Mount Shasta. So we got them all. Whitney, Elbert, Rainier, and Mount Shasta. What are the 5 music artists that had the most number 1 um, hits on the Billboard Hot 100? The top 5. Okay? The top 5. I'm going to take issue with what's on here, by the way, with regards to this, because all right, Billboard did start in 1958, so but there was a prior one that I don't know if it was formerly known as something else, and Billboard bought it or whatever it was. But anyway, I'm going to go with the Billboard list since 1958. All right, so we have the Beatles. Helen Bertona that's number 1 with 20. That's correct. I'm trying to see now. Elvis Presley. So that's where I take issue because he's not on the list because apparently after 1958, Elvis only had 7 number 1s, but he had 11 prior to that. So he would be on the list because I think he had 18. So anyway, that's the asterisk that I would put. Whitney Houston is not there. Michael Jackson, Darnell Overton is there and he's number 4, and he's tied with somebody for the 5th. I've never heard of this the number 5. Billy Joel, no. Beach Boys, no. Stevie Wonder, no. The Who, no. Stevie Nicks knows. Mariah Carey, Alan Rupa, number 2 with 19. I don't listen to much music. So anyway, so it's the Beatles, Mariah Carey, number 2. Nobody got number 3 yet.
Herman's Hermits.
No. Michael Jackson at 4. I'm going to give the answers here. Number 2 is Rihanna. And number 4, tied with Michael Jackson, is Drake. I don't know if that's a typo. I don't know if that's a typo or not. I've never heard of Drake. Have you heard of Drake?
I know he made some great, chocolate
Cakes.
treats like noodles.
Yes. All right. And finally, Drake is real, Maggie P says. Okay. Oh, Drake is Canadian. All right.
I saw 60 Minutes last night did a 20 minutes on this person I never heard of before, Pink.
Yes, Pink I've heard of.
And I mean, Pink is a singer, but she could very easily be a wrestler for the WWE. Or
I guess.
Or if they were still in business, she could work for Barnum and Bailey Circus.
Yes, she's very direct.
Yeah.
I like that about her. I like that. She's very direct. Okay, the 3 top retailers in the United States as of 2023. This should be easy. Okay, the 3 top retailers, and I shop at all of them. Okay, the chat board's getting ready. Macy's is not there. Walmart, yes. Bunch of you said Walmart. Target is not there. Ryan Ford. Walmart, Amazon, Helen Bertona. Walmart is number 1. Amazon is number 2. And number 3 is Maggie P. Got it. Costco. Those are the number 3, the top 3 retailers: Walmart, Amazon, Costco. And I think Home Depot probably would be 4. So,
Frank Scalera says Dick's Sporting Goods.
well, they're a big sports retailer, but they're not in the top. They're not in the top 3. So that was interesting. I those are probably the only 3 stores I shop in.
And there you go.
And that's me. I wish there was
I
just wish there was a Costco near me, though.
Hey, we got 81 likes. That's not bad.
No, not bad at all for a Monday.
Yeah.
I'm very relaxed. I'm very relaxed and enjoyed my time off. Because every once in a while, you got to take some time and walk away from this stuff, especially when you're doing it every single day, 7 days a week. You know, be it the show or the other stuff that I do. So I needed the brain to be unfried, and it did, and it was.
You still were able to, even when you were in Tennessee, you were able to do like weather in a minute, right? Or
yeah, I did. The only day I only did one thing was on Saturday when I just did a post in the morning and that was it. I didn't do anything else. No, Saturday. Yeah, that's all I did on Saturday was I just did that post and that was that. I just said, you know what? I just need I need to take a breather. So, all right, so we'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time, won't we, Joe?
We will be here, whether or not the Houston Astros will still be here. It's Game 7 tonight, and from what I can understand, they are losing to the Texas Rangers 3-0.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
Now, the interesting thing about the Texas Rangers, they are a nomadic major league team. They originally were the Minnesota Twins.
Right.
And then they moved to Washington and became the Washington Senators.
Right.
And then they moved yet again to Texas and are now the Texas Rangers. So I don't know what you would call them, but in any case, they are trying to get into the World Series tonight. So we'll see.
Jess Harden, I ranted over the fact that it's not going to be a strong El Nino. Just so you know, I don't know. Everybody watches. See, this is the problem, and it's hard for me to just get a handle on it. I can only control what I say, but I know all weather folks and weather fans and enthusiasts do. They watch everything and watch everything and everyone they can. They read every article they can get their hands on, and sometimes there's all this conflicting information. It doesn't. It's one thing that Mr. Snodgrass pointed out on his video, Joe, that I posted the link for on the chat board. I got to give you the link to it too.
I got it.
Oh, you did get it. Is the fact that when you look at the correlations with regards El Nino or La Nina, the correlation is like it's not a high number. It's less than 0.5. It's like somewhere around 0.2, 0.3 in terms of what happens what happens in the atmosphere. It's not a blueprint. In other words, it's not a blueprint for day-to-day weather. You're going to have seasonal factors and local factors that are going to that are going to impact what is going on. And as we've said many times, almost to the point of nauseum, is the fact that the La Nina last year and the El Nino this year are not behaving the way they're supposed to. I mean, they're just not. It's different. So it's trying to understand why it's different is probably going to be very important in terms of getting an idea of what the winter is going to be like. But I'm getting to where I don't like this time of year because of the fact that we have to, we get into all of this stuff and everybody gets wrapped up in the long range forecast that who cares? Just let the weather happen, and however it happens, we'll follow it. That's the point of being here. Not to come out with a forecast 3 months from now and then and then just shut the TV off.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll be back tomorrow night, 7:35. Thank you again to Ken Musillo, Mark G., the chairman, not once but twice, and Steve Lapointe for hitting the tip jar. And
Yes.
we'll again see you tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow night. Don't forget, the podcast is on YouTube Music and on Google Podcasts. So if you don't watch us here, you can watch us there. All right. And we'll see you tomorrow. Nighty night.
Bye, Joe.